going to do a little bit of a shuffle here to set the stage for our first interview of the day, and it is on an issue which has just been addressed by all our speakers in different ways. It is obviously diversity very much the key for much of our discussion today, and how serious sport is in taking on that question of sport for all and meaning sport for all. So what I'd like to do is introduce our interviewer for this next session, and that is Maria Serrell, who's with us here, and thank you very much for joining us. Let me just tell you one or two things about Maria. She's a bit of a machine, frankly. As just a little girl, she had a bad motor accident and has dealt with that through a life which shows no signs of having had any disability or challenge to face when you look at her CV. She is the presenter, or has been the presenter, of a cable fitness show called Everyone Can Exercise, has fitness videos to go with that. She was the first woman in a wheelchair to compete in a Miss California pageant. She is an actress. She's appeared on Good Morning America, Entertainment Tonight, and she is now the sports reporter for RPV TV. Ladies and gentlemen, Maria. This side or outside? Okay, fine. Let me hand this to you, and I'll let you introduce your guest.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. If I can brag a little bit about our first guest, Anita DeFrance, yes? Anita, okay. Well, Anita won a bronze medal in the Olympics. That's how you might know her. But in addition to that, there are so many more things to talk about. Over her career, she was a member of the International Olympic Committee on the executive board, vice president of the 1984 Los Angeles Olympic Organizing Committee, was elected to the IOC in 1986, making her not only the first African-American woman, but the first American woman to serve on that committee. So many wonderful things. She's credited with getting women's softball and soccer, as well as a vast increase in the number of opportunities for women on the Olympic programs. Currently, she's the president of Tubman Truth Corp, an organization working to provide liberty and justice for all people. She serves on the LA 2028, the Los Angeles bid committee for the 2028 Summer Olympic Games, and is the LA 2028 senior advisor for Legacy. She's also, in 2017, was inducted into the LA Coliseum Court of Honor. And a few more things, Newsweek named her one of 150 women who shake the world. Los Angeles Magazine named her 10 women making a difference in Los Angeles. And Sporting News named her one of the most powerful women in sports out of 100. So that's pretty amazing, Anita. So many accomplishments. Please come up. And those are just scratching the surface. There were so many. It was hard to pick, but we could have done this all day. Just in researching you and looking at your accomplishments, kind of want to go back a little bit and tell me about your first introduction into sports when you were a child. What sport drew you first?
Well, my first sports experience, I guess, was learning to swim.
Okay.
I remember to this day being invited to go to a tea party, and I thought, okay, tea party. I was 4 years old at the time, and I thought, okay, this will be fun, and where's the tea party? And the instructor said, here, in the pool. So he cleverly got us to go into the pool and pretend that we were having tea. I never got tea, but I got to the pool, and it changed my life. I learned how to swim at age 4.
Wow. And from that, what the process of becoming an Olympian, did you know that was your destiny, or how did that come together for you?
Well, that was my only sports experience until I got to college. So unlike the First Lady, who grew up in the same state, we grew up in different eras. There was no sports available. We had music, so that was my team. Through high school, I played clarinet and bassoon and sang in the madrigals and avoided a lot of class that way. because we are very popular.
Of course.
And learned a lot about being on a team and how important it is to work together, and learned a lot about the barriers that were set against me, not only because of color, not only because of my sex, but because men got preference in sports for no discernible reason.
Right.
Sports is something we do as humans. I can go off my little riff here on sports belonging to us all, it being a part of our nature as humans. We're the only species on Earth who take part in sport. Have you seen any other set up hurdles to race across them to see who got to the finish line first?
No.
I use the example of an ant crawling on a twig to get across a little puddle of water. I've never seen them line them up to race across that puddle of water. Never. It's something we as humans do because it's very important to us. It involves us not only as we are competitors, as we watch, as we report, as we tell the history of the past, as we talk about the future of our clubs and our communities. It's immensely and essentially and exclusively human to take part in sport.
When did the Olympic opportunity happen?
Oh, I guess, I can't take this seriously. I was demoted from varsity JV my senior year in college in rowing. And at the same time, the coach later, in a moment, came over to say that, but if you worked hard, you could make the Olympic team. I'm thinking, okay, I couldn't make the varsity at a small coeducational liberal arts college, Division D1. I didn't know it at the time, but I later learned I had competed in Division I. And so how the heck, and then I realized it wasn't about the Olympic Games. He needed me to continue to row, or the other women in the boat would not have a chance to row. So, that was kind of held up, and my father had wanted my older brother and me to be the first African-American swimmers on the U.S. Olympic team, and that was not going to happen with just 2 months in the summer of having a pool open. That was not going to work, even though it was a Frederick Douglass pool. That was it.
This is where it becomes inspiring because you did make the Olympic team, and here you are at the Olympics. What was that experience like? Was it overwhelming? Did you have ideas in your head? What was that feeling like?
Well, I was going to law school for 2 years as I was training.
While
so
you
I
were
was a little
training,
busy.
amazing.
But it was good because there was something where I had immediate response, and the law school you get, one course one exam, and that was it for the
Right.
year. So it was nice to have something to
Sure.
see that you were
Strive to.
moving forward on. In other words, it kept me sane,
Right.
both.
Yes.
But the important part of the Olympic Games to me is the Olympic Village. There's nothing else like it in the world. You go to you're invited to live in a community where everyone there has been successful. Imagine that. Everyone
Amazing.
has been selected by
Yes.
their country to be there. And we know everyone wants to be a gold medalist, and we know there are only 300 or so of those to go around, and there are far more people than 300 living in the village.
Right.
So we knew not everyone would win one, but it was the goal was to live in this community of mutual respect and fair play, and yet some would be more successful than others, and it would be that way for the next 4 years and forever. One of the great privileges we have as IOC members is we're the only ones who present medals, and purportedly we're the only ones who can actually present an Olympic medal. And I have the privilege of saying to the ones who get the gold, for now and forever, you are first an Olympic champion. And it's true.
It is, and it's amazing because you, 4 years later, missed the opportunity because of what went on. Tell us that story, because I think that sort of catapulted you into all the work that you've done since then.
Well, politics.
Yes,
Everyone, you've
always,
heard enough
right?
about politics already, I'm sure. But for those of you who are not aware, in 1980, the U.S. Olympic team was your team to prevent the Soviet Union, remember them, from doing mischief in a country called Afghanistan. Gosh, 1980.
It's just a couple years ago.
So we were told that we would stay home and then show that way the Soviet Union would be, bending on their knees, and I don't know what would happen if we stayed home. We stayed home, and I'll tell you what happened, nothing. Nothing happened. For
Yeah.
10 years, it was 10 years before there were talks about peace in Afghanistan, and you all know how that turned out. Some of you may have family members over there right now, for which I'm sorry, and I hope they come back safely. But nothing happened. And the worst part of it is, and I finally figured out how to enunciate that. My friends were saying, what's the big deal? It's over, you didn't go, so what? Well, that is the big deal. When we were at the USOC and there was a movie of, movies to see what happened before and makes you excited to see it. And they showed the 1980, first the 76 team, got a little play there, then the 80 winter team. And that was back when both games were in the same year, the winter and summer. And so they showed the 1980 team, and some of you may recall the so-called Miracle on Ice, where the U.S. men's team defeated the Soviets and then went on to win the gold medal, because it was a round robin, and even though they won that game, that did not mean they won the gold medal. They did defeat the strongest team in the tournament and the one who was expected to win, but they had to then win again in order to win the gold medal. But then next should have been us, and next there was nothing. I and the 520 other members of the 1980 team did something, but there's no proof of it. And that's what's wrong. Not a penny of your taxpayers' money went to go to the team. Never has, probably never will.
Right.
We were all private citizens. There was absolutely no reasons. Well, he was honorary president. President Carter was honorary president of the U.S. Olympic Committee, but otherwise, he was interfering in individual citizens' right to pursue their happiness, without a penny of federal money.
What do you think you learned most from that experience?
Most, how little people in the United States understood about the Olympic movement, and that's a sad thing to say, but that's what I learned, how little we know in this country and how little it's taught.
Right.
I mean, people know every 4 years or so, now it's every 2 years, they get to see the best athletes on the face of the earth, and every once in a while, 1984, in 96, in 2002, in 1980, and 84 in this country, we get to host the games.
Right.
28 the next time.
That's right.
We get to host it.
From being an Olympian, what do you think is the biggest issue into making the Olympic Games better?
Well, humanity. Both
Seems
is
like
the
an easy
basis of
thing.
it, and it is where the problems are generated. But there is a respect for the Olympic movement. And the nice thing about it is everyone can have their own definition of what the Olympic movement is. And I think that's why it's so well known worldwide, because there's no limit on how you can describe the Olympic Games. We in this country love it because we see excellence, and we love seeing excellence.
Right.
And I watched in '84 as people went to see events they'd never heard of before, and yet those events were sold out, as well as ones that people had friends in and were going to compete in. But it was the idea of seeing the very best people doing this that caused people to go and celebrate their excellence.
You have been such a mentor to young athletes. What is the best advice you can give them so that they can pursue their dreams?
Always ask for help. We forget in our nation to ask for help. And as adults, since I think that we're all adults in this room, if you include me, we forget to ask for help. And we need to make sure we continue that, to understand that, and ask why. And most importantly, remember to ask why not, especially when faced with discrimination. Because there's generally no reason except it's the way it's been.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. What do you think is missing in athletic programs to elevate athletes?
Well, fairness. It's funny with Title IX, it's in our country, by the way.
Right.
And we competed against women from other countries who somehow got trained well and had a lot of support and backing. Fortunately, we have Title IX, so that because our nation is different from others in our structure of sport, we're one of the few nations in the world where there is no federal involvement in sport, where there is no funding of it. Most countries fund sport because they know that it's important for their communities. We don't. We hook it up to the educational process, thank goodness for that. And throughout education, we're expected to have sport if it's funded.
Right.
And thank goodness for organizations like the LA84 Foundation, which is doing a lot of the work, which the
Right.
government couldn't do in partnership with the government. And I get to mention a hero for me, someone who's been in my life since I moved out here, who's been consistent, and she is a member of the board of the LA84 Foundation, none other than our own. I've forgotten your name. This is terrible, but I will admit it because you know it's just a momentary thing. Maureen Kendall.
Very nice.
Who was one of the first women to lead the Public Works division of the city. And
Wow.
that's how I met her first, and she was on the board of the LA84 Foundation. I do have problems with names, so I just did the most embarrassing thing I could do, is admit that I
It's
couldn't
okay.
remember.
We all have
some of
those
the
problems,
names.
Anita, I'll tell you that
apologize.
firsthand. You will be involved with 2028. What are you hoping are the major changes by then?
First of all, I hope I can't think of them, because I think they'll be far more clever than I am. And I hope that, I mean, our goal as a part of an organizing committee now, is to provide the athletes with the best possible situation at the games, and that's important. There will be, I will say more than 10,000 for sure, probably more than 1,500 athletes competing. And each one will have come from their own specific background. Some of them will be a part of teams, others will be individual. So how they experience the games, we want everyone to leave saying they had great games.
Right.
That's the goal.
It's so inspiring to be at an Olympics, just to be around that. How amazing it will be for people here or people in Los Angeles to be able to experience that maybe for the first time. What is that like, since you know what that's like?
Boy, it's an unbelievable opportunity. I shouldn't say unbelievable, because it will happen, so it is believable.
Right.
It's a remarkable opportunity. Things will happen in the city. People will be nicer to one another than you've ever seen before. I still recall the story a friend of mine told of how a policeman stopped traffic midway in a big street so that she and her mother and her son could cross the street. Middle of it, it was a big street, and the policeman took the initiative to let them cross instead of having to go all the way to the corner.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's just a tiny bit of what. Some of you may have been here then, and you probably have a story to tell. And that's why 89% of Angelenos said yes when they were asked about having the games. No city has that kind of openness to hosting the games. We had a great experience, and
Yes.
we continue to benefit from it, like LA84, and I get to mention my successor,
Yes.
who is sitting behind her predecessor, Renata Semerald, who now presides over this great organization. So kids who weren't here in '84 are still benefiting from those games, so how could it be a bad thing? And indeed, I do not understand cities who see it as a bad thing.
No. Sports in general is an amazing thing, so.
It is, and these are the best athletes in the world, some of whom will live here in advance of the games to
Right.
train and will continue to live here. We have more than 1,500 Olympians living in Southern California,
Amazing, amazing. Well, thank you for
and
giving me.
Paralympians as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right, all kinds. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you today and just to share your story with everyone. You have been such an inspiration to really everyone. Thank you
Thank
for
you. I've had a
being here.
lot of opportunities. Got to give back. Thank you.
Amazing.